Support for this podcast comes from the Central Valley Journalism Collaborative, connecting communities with the resources, infrastructure, and networks to ensure a vibrant local free press.
From KVPR in Fresno, this is Central Valley Daily. It's Monday, August 18th. I'm Sarith Hawk in for Elizabeth Arkalian. A new state law aims to bring more transparency to California's high-speed rail project.
It forces a financial plan to be put in place to figure out what high-speed rail is, can it be completed, and can we move forward with the project?
We'll speak with the Valley Republican Assembly member who spearheaded the bill. That conversation in just a moment.
Summer is in full force, and at KVPR that means the $10,000 drawing is back. Thanks to our sponsors, Fresno Mazda and Fresno Mitsubishi, for providing the $10,000 grand prize for our annual fundraiser. Buy your tickets today. They're $100 each and limited to 800 sold. Find $10,000 drawing contest rules and details at kvpr.org/10K.
And now to our feature story. When will California's high-speed rail project finally be complete? As we recently heard on this program from high-speed rail CEO Ian Chaudhry, they hope to have the Merced to Bakersfield section done by 2032 and the entire project from LA to San Francisco complete by 2039. While many still doubt that timeline, the project continues to move forward. Recently, Governor Gavin Newsom signed a law that some see as bringing more transparency to the project. It was Assembly Bill 377. The legislation will require the High-Speed Rail Authority to provide a detailed funding plan for the Merced to Bakersfield segment. To learn more about the law, we recently spoke with its author, Republican Assemblymember David Tangipa. He's 29 years old and the youngest representative in the state legislature. He represents the 8th Assembly District, which includes Clovis, North Fresno, and the Central Sierra. Our host, Elizabeth Arkalian, starts the conversation.
So to start, Assemblymember, I wanted to first talk about Assembly Bill 377, which you authored. Governor Gavin Newsom recently signed it. So can you give us an overview of what the bill will specifically require the High-Speed Rail Authority to do?
Yeah, well, thank you for having me on. And it's actually, I'm excited. It's my first piece of legislation ever signed as a freshman legislator here. And it's a landmark piece of legislation because it does something that I think everybody in the state of California that has heard about California high-speed rail really question why it's not already in place. And it forces a financial plan to be put in place to figure out what high-speed rail is, can it be completed, and can we move forward with the project? And so the structure that it really builds around it is going to eliminate and bring accountability to high-speed rail. Originally, the project was told to us and sold to us to cost $33 billion. We now have a cost estimate of $130+ billion. And it's one of the things that I've stated as I've worked in the real world and with my real estate business, and I've worked with developers. And when I've talked to them, when it comes to cost estimates, if you're 10% over cost estimate, you're probably going to be looking for a new job soon. If you're 20% over cost estimate, whoever was working on that project probably is going to have a hard time finding a job soon. But if you're 400% over cost estimates, you probably work for the California high-speed rail, because that doesn't happen anywhere else. And so what our bill does is rein in that, and it really caps that ability to go from $33 billion to $130 billion, because they will fall out of compliance with our law.
Do you feel like before this, the state was not completely transparent about where the high-speed rail funds were going?
It was more of there were so many loose ends in it. We knew that money was going, that things were happening, but it wasn't happening in a sense that actually made sense. That we are expecting, if a project was telling me, again, that it's going to cost $33 billion, and then even when you go from 33 to $66 billion, that's a 100% increase in the cost estimate. Well, okay, well, we know money went here. We know that we see concrete pillars and structures somewhere around, and there's some acquisition. But how can you go from that estimate to the next estimate? That doesn't work that way. And so it will, again, more or less rein in that direction.
And force folks to put pen to paper and prove, their accounting, so to speak.
Exactly. Well, and it's making sure that your accounting is actually accurate, because you can say, well, because their accounting it's not that it's necessarily inaccurate, it's just not legally locked in. And with that, gives them that open door to say, well, I think today it costs $10, and I think tomorrow it costs $100. With this, it says all you have is $15, and you can move with that statistical norm, and it really puts high-speed rail in a position to say, give us something, give us some structure, and end this overrun.
It's an accountability piece. And you mentioned being a freshman assembly member, this bill being signed by a Democratic governor, you're a Republican. That seems like pretty interesting to me, especially considering this project is so controversial.
I agree with you on that part. And I will tell you this, that it actually surprised us that the governor signed it, because it brings so much accountability. But I think it's because high-speed rail has been a failed project so much that it put him in a position that he had to sign it. I'll admit right now, all of the language that I had prepared was all veto language, calling the governor out, saying that he did not want transparency, accountability, and a cap to the endless spending on high-speed rail. But, I will say I am grateful. I am grateful to the other legislators that also signed on to it. But it's sad that the project had to get so bad that they were forced into the corner of, well, we've got to do something. At least this individual is willing to write a law that actually reins in accountability. It was surprising. But again, I'm grateful for it to get done, because it's my district that high-speed rail runs the majority through.
That leads me to also ask, what should happen to the California high-speed rail project as a whole now that the federal government has pulled back its funding? Do you think construction should cease completely, or are there any changes at this point that you think could win back some support that maybe the project has lost?
So when it comes to California high-speed rail, I can say this very clearly. Back in 2008, I did not vote for high-speed rail. I was 12 years old. And what I will say now is that we are left with concrete pillars and rebar. And with the pullback from the federal funding, my entire goal is to make sure that the Central Valley is not left with a modern-day Stonehenge, and that our projects are, whether we're offloading it, selling it to a private entity, or figuring out what to do with this project, it is to make sure that our valley is made whole and we are not left with a monument of a failure of California's ability. And so I'm not too sure how the state will decide to do that. And that is where, again, the financial plan actually gives them a little bit more room to say, well, what are we going to do? But that locked in piece is also going to force us to have the hard conversation of, we do not believe that this is feasible in the state of California. And then we will have to, again, get together in the room. So what AB 377, some of the other intended positions that I really wanted to do once they signed this bill was to say, okay, now we have to lock it down. And then when they decide to look at all of the pieces and say, there is no way that we can do this, because I'll tell you this, if they come back with a cost estimate and a locked in financial plan that says, well, we thought it was going to be $133 billion, but now we're actually going to move that financial plan to $200 billion, the people of California will be done with this. And we will have to figure out another plan to really move that position. And whether, again, it's offloading the project or we're figuring out different ways, or that's what we need to do.
So does your law require them then hypothetically say the economy changes, the cost estimate goes up, in a year or two it goes to $150 billion? Is there some sort of legal requirement that they need approval before they can move forward when it comes to adjusting the overall estimate for this project?
That's exactly right. And that is what's going to prevent the all of a sudden, well, we went from 33 to 130 billion.
Okay.
People have to say, oh, we have to go back to the legislature. We have to go back and make the request. And we'll put all the other legislators on record saying, let's throw more money if we need to. And that's not the area that I'm going to be in. I'll tell you that right now.
We only have a little time, so I want to pivot towards this topic of redistricting. Governor Newsom just announced that he would be calling for a special election to redraw our U.S. congressional maps. It's obviously in reaction to President Trump's request that Texas redraw their congressional districts. What's your initial reaction to the news especially being, one of the state's few Republicans in the Capitol?
Well, again, it's frustrating to me that it seems like our legislative body and our governor is very reactive to what's going on across the country and in Texas. But instead of listening to the people of California and demanding that we solve the issues here when it comes to housing, affordability, our insurance, our utility crisis, and all of the crises that are happening here in California, this legislative body and this governor moved at the speed of light, to call an election for November 4th to allocate over $200 million, because that's what it's going to cost, and to force a redistricting position into this state that nobody asked us to solve. Californians are begging for relief. I spent this entire week going throughout my entire community, and I can tell you this, not once did I hear from anybody that their priority was to redistrict the state of California. And for me, that's the part where if they can move at the speed of light to take on this issue and they can't do it for the other ones, and they have 100%, the majority has 100% power in this state, it tells me their priorities, and it's not the people of California.
Before I let you go, Assemblymember, you're the youngest elected official in the California state legislature. You're 29 years old, and I'm curious to know how you think your age influences how you approach things in Sacramento. Do you think we need more young people with a voice in the state legislature?
I do believe so. I believe that we are the future of this state. We are the future of this nation as well. And we should have a say in dictating that. It's one of the things that I've talked about quite often. If it's our future, shouldn't I have a say in building it? And if we're in between this age of 20 and 35, and the smallest window of prosperity and opportunity is in our generation, don't we think that the generations of the past are the ones who created this issue? And how can they solve it when they're not living through the exact same things we are? I'm a homeowner. I have helped my parents. Less than 10 years ago, I was homeless. And I'm looking at all of the problems that we're going through right now. And unless you're living through it and actually working through it in this current environment, it's very hard to understand. And I think we should fight for it. And that's exactly what I want to be a voice for. And I know that there are others that want to be that same voice, because you can't expect the same people who created the problem to fix it as well.
One last thing I want to mention is what drew you to fight for your conservative values in the state capitol? Because, to be frank, it can be hard to get conservatives to speak with us. And they can be very particular about media outlets that they speak with. And I appreciate you coming on and delivering your, critique. But do you think more people in your party should be open to discussing their viewpoints with people across the political spectrum? Or is this kind of siloed political warfare that we're in right now, it seems, is that just going to continue?
Well, I'll tell everybody you're great. And so, but for me, I will speak to everybody and anybody, because I'll be honest, I don't really care about the best Republicans in a room full of Republicans. I don't care about the best Democrats in a room full of Democrats. What I do care about is that Californians are suffering, and I'm challenging everybody to be the best Californian. Yes, I am a conservative, and yes, I am a Republican, but I'm a Californian before that, and I'm an American before that. And I think everybody should talk to each other, because we're all on the same airplane, is the way that I like to describe it. And you may not like the person that you sit next to, and you may not like the pilot at the time that it's flying it. But I can tell you this, if the pilot was a Democrat, I want him to be the best pilot that he could be, even if I don't like him. If the pilot's a Republican, I want it to be the best pilot that it can be, because we all are in this ship together. We're all traveling together. We should all hope for prosperity and not the failure of the others, because the failures of the others means that we're failing as a nation or we're failing as a state. I think my colleagues join me on that, and I really hope that my Democrat colleagues really join me on that as well. It's not always felt in Sacramento, I can say that. I hold a new record. I am one of the fastest legislators to be kicked off of committees, simply because I like to have the hard conversation and have the accountability. But if that's reflective in the majority party, it's really hard to say that they're the ones that are open to having the dialogue. And so I think that's where some of my colleagues may worry about it, but it's not to be afraid, but it's to embrace it and just go say hi to everybody. And so I'm hopeful they join me. I will always join you whenever you need me, whether you like me or not. That's okay.
We appreciate it. David Tangipa, State Assembly Member for California's 8th Assembly District. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
That was KVPR's Elizabeth Arkalian speaking with California State Assembly Member David Tangipa. To check out our conversation with the CEO of California's High-Speed Rail Authority, you can listen to our August 4th episode. And that's today's show. Today's episode was produced by Jonathan Linden and KVPR with support from the Central Valley Journalism Collaborative. I'm Sarith Hawk. You can find the latest local news anytime at kvpr.org.
These days, there's so much news, it can be hard to keep up with what it all means for you, your family, and your community. The Consider This podcast from NPR features our award-winning journalism. 6 days a week, we bring you a deep dive on a news story and provide the context and analysis that helps you make sense of the news. We get behind the headlines. We get to the truth. Listen to the Consider This podcast from NPR.